Greetings. Let's talk. So, probably have noticed things have changed a little bit in the studio, and I wanted to talk about some of these changes because it's kind of cool and it's very important. First and foremost, let's talk about the new background here. And if you've got a keen eye, you'll notice I've got something else here as well. A large drinking horn. Very classic SCA accoutrement. I almost wish it was actually a horn. I've always actually wanted one of those classic Viking style horn. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, and I love that the scene where Gimli blew the giant horn. But no, drinking vessel, which I don't drink, and I think a soda can would get. I think a can of soda get lost in this. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with it, but we're going to talk about this. And you'll also notice there's something not there. My Herald's baton is not up anymore. And we're going to talk about all of that and a little bit more in a minute. So, a couple weeks ago, I headed down to the Barony of Bonwick and the Barony of Eldon Hills joint event, Two Artisans, Two Bards. And it was a great day, wonderful adventure, and the event is a joint competition where you enter arts and sciences, and each barony picks from the pool of entrants as to who's going to win their ANS competition or ANS championship. And also, both baronies have a joint bardic competition, and they get to choose from the pool of competitors for their bardic champion. Now, I decided I was going to go for broke on this one, and I said I'm just going to enter both. And I got cocky, so I took my entire metal casting shop down to this site. Actually, the trip down's a bit of an adventure on its own. Two friends and I loaded up my van, and we drove down Friday. 6-hour drive, 6.5, I believe. Got dinner on the way, and then we got down to site. It's a public park, or it's a Texas State Park Grounds park. And we'd rented a cabin, so we didn't have to bring any tents. And we checked in and got everything loaded up. And of course, it's an unair-conditioned tent. It was unbelievably hot. Oh dear God, it was 98, 99. I think Saturday we were looking at hundreds. It was 102, 104. They were projecting 106, so I was actually glad it was only 102 or something that day. But on top of all that, it was an amazing journey down there. Lots of fun conversations, two amazing people I was traveling with. But when I got there Saturday morning, we came out of the cabin and headed over to the site where the event was. I brought my entire metal casting kit in this big box I made for it, and I set it up, and I scratch made a model for a coin, a medallion specifically, right there on site. Cleaned it up, made this medallion design, modeled it in a solid blank, which was made of Sculpey, which historically would be akin to clay, of course, and then built up all the lettering and all the details in wax. And then I cast it. I pulled out my casting sand, and I cast it and dusted it and pulled the model out, and I cast two of them in pewter and pulled them out and polished them up and sanded them and cleaned all the edges, and they were gorgeous. Then I turned around and entered them. I put the two freshly cast medallions, freshly cast, polished all the medallions, on the table with a full page of printed documentation. And that was my ANS entry. So there was the pizzazz, the panache. I'm going to borrow a phrase from a shielder, the panache of I didn't just enter ANS. I showed up and scratch made my ANS entry on site. Thank you. No, I didn't win the competition, and there are no hard feelings. I had some stiff competition, and I did have a few things about my documentation which I could have polished up better, so I don't feel like the final scores were unfair in the least, but I still scored very well. And everyone, I mean, all of the entrants were amazing, and everyone was complimenting everyone else. I got a lot of good feedback about my stuff. But I had lots of questions. I had a whole audience who came just to watch me actually pour the molten pewter for the casting, and clean off the coin and knock off all the flashing and sand it. It was just an amazing experience doing all that, and I love doing it. And then, not to be outdone, I said I was going to do my NS and I'm going to enter Bardic. And the Bardic competition was actually a really cool format. Her ladyship, Beatrix, set up a stand with 4 different style of swords. There was what would probably be considered an arming sword or crusader's arming sword. There was a basket-hilted saber. It has slight curve in it, so it's a basket-hilted saber. Very similar to a cavalry style saber. And there was a early period single, one-handed sword. Might be considered an early period knightly sword, depending on how you use the term. And then, last but not least, is a bell-hilted rapier. And the idea was you had to walk up, select a sword, and you had to tell a story either about the sword or inspired by the sword. Take your pick. And first of all, I just want to say the competition was amazing. There were some really creative competitors. We had one lady who kind of did a choose your own adventure. She actually had the beginning already set, and she told the story, and then she asked different members of the audience to pick different items that she had laid out as props, and then she told the story based on those. So it's I don't know how much of it she memorized, how much of it she improv, but she did an amazing job with the choose your own adventure style of storytelling. I thought it was really good. I was really impressed with that entry. Maestro Orlando Giovanni actually sung the words to his letter of intent for a previous Queen's Champion that he wrote. You have to do a letter of intent to enter the tournament, and he actually, I believe it was sung the letter because the letter was written as a filk to an existing song. And of course, Orlando oozes charisma, so he pulled that off pretty well, very well. Who am I kidding? And I decided, I'm going to make a splash here. I'm going to try and do this, and you got to set yourself apart from the crowd. So I walked up, and I didn't tell a story about one of the swords. I told a story about each of the swords, and it's not just a story. I told a historically verified account about 4 individuals who each wielded or interacted with weapons of similar style to the weapons that were up there. Now, that brings us to 2 of the things we pointed to, because at court that evening, I was named the Bard of the Barony of Bonwick, the champion bard. I have not held a Bardic championship in ages. Ironically enough, the last Bardic championship I held was the Bard of the Barony of Wiesenfeuer, my home barony now, but this was years ago when I was still living in my old group. And I entered, I intended to do my best, but you still never expect to win. So I was like, oh, okay. But they gave me 2 amazing pieces of regalia to carry around. One, of course, is this drinking horn, which not entirely sure what I'm going to do with it, because I like stuff I can, sit down with drink in it. But they also gave me this beautiful banner with a heraldic harp and the Black Star of Ansteora on it. And this is part of the champions regalia that they carry around, which I got to tell you, first of all, To the barony, thank you so much for not including a cloak in there, considering over half of the Onstioran year, we're trying to take off as much fabric as we legally can without getting arrested. A cloak is really only viable for like 3 months a year, and that's on a cool year. So just thank you for that. Also, thank you for not making it a walking stick or something. I understand those are the classic items of the Bard, but just something else to lug around. Oh, that would have been. I'm not sure how much use I would have gotten out of a walking stick without worrying about breaking it. But this is Bonwick's, and for the next year, I am in charge of it, and I wanted to take the opportunity to kind of showcase the barony I'm representing. So this is going to be part of our background for a while. And I want people to understand that now, I'm a performer. Performance is part of this dynamic here between us. And a lot of what this entails is also what I channeled when I won the barter competition in Bonwick. So I wanted to take advantage of these items both and let them become part of my story for the next year. So as you're watching the videos, there you go. I want you to enjoy the scenery and understand that the scenery, like the box has a story behind it, and my gloves have a story behind them, and the baton had a story behind it. We'll get to the next story on that in a second, but these also have a story behind them. Now, let's talk about what's not here for a second. My baton. Don't worry, not giving up heraldry. I'm not, nothing so dramatic as that. But as many of you know, I am the Herald of Wiesenfeuer, which means all of the barony's heraldry I am accountable for. I'm not personally directly responsible for it because I'm not that good. But I am, when push comes to shove, it's going to be my name on the report. I'm the one that the regional or the principality herald, in our case, goes to say, hey, what's up with this, or do you need that, yada, yada, yada. Now, I have a deputy, Guinevere Llewellyn, who, as she's been doing this, I guess, about a year and a quarter now. And she's a phenomenal deputy. Oh, good heavens. Took that ball and ran with it. And she has been a excellent member of the local heraldic community and has been a stalwart and diehard deputy and has taken over the book heraldry, the names and arms submissions, beautifully. I could not have asked for a better right hand on that. My tenure's coming up pretty soon. I've been at this job year and 3/4, well, actually a little longer than that. And I knew going into this, I knew when I signed up to be Herald that it was a 2-year tenure. I was going to be in for 2 years, but I knew that burnout was a question. There are parts of the office of Herald which don't agree with me. They're tough on me. They are stressful and they cater to skills I do not have or do not do well. So I knew that doing this job was going to grind me down and that I needed to budget my time and energy, and that when 2 years was up, I'm done. I'm handing this off. And we recently, in my barony, did the handoff where our previous baronesses stepped down and a new set of nobles stepped up. Baron Isaac Bain and his wife Baroness Edwin Gothrath, it's Old English, I can never get the name right. It's either Old English or Norse, I can't remember. But Baroness Edwin, they're both good and excellent friends of mine, so this is a wonderful development for the barony, and I'm thrilled to be working with them. But when we did the investiture court, I heralded the stepping down court for Marine and Beatrix, the baronesses that were stepping down. And just the logistics of it, it was decided that my deputy, Guinevere, would handle the stepping up court for the new excellencies. And after court was over, I kind of realized watching it that this establishes her as their voice. And I didn't really feel like there was any good reason for me to just jump back in, at the next populist meeting and go, well, I'm heralding this again, when she had gotten that connection, she had gotten that exposure, she had gotten the experience, she got to open their first court. Um, so at the next populist meeting, I had talked with her ahead of time. Next populist meeting, it was agreed I was going to sit in the audience, and they would, um, Isaac and Edwin would work with Gwen as their voice herald. Now I'm still the herald of Wiesenfeuer. It's still my office, and I still, hold all the books and can nominally control everything. But the visual impact, the visual continuity of Gwen as their herald was very important to me because um, it's July. I'm stepping down in October. So we really only have 2 more months before the office comes open. And obviously, I'm not the one making the selection for who the replacement will be. It'll depend on who the applicants are. But I know that I'm very hopeful that Gwen will be the next herald for the barony. I've made no secret of that. And for me, as hard as it is, I'm very possessive about things I do. My heraldry is very important to me, and anyone who knows me know that that's been true for decades. It was very important for me to make sure she got the experience and the exposure that she needed before the transition so that she had a good feel for the office. And part of that was at the end of that first populist meeting. I went up and she's getting ready to hand me the tabard because, I have the baronial tabard and the barony's big herald's book and all that. And I said, nope, you are their herald right now. I want you to take the tabard home and I want you to take the book home because if they need a herald, if they need someone to go with them to be a herald, it's going to be you. So I want you to have the resources. I don't want you to have to go through me. And then I picked up the baton, and it's my baton. I made that baton. That was, that was something. I bought the parts. I sanded it. I polished it. I painted it. I'm the one that put the baronial arms on the head. And I said, do you think you can handle the baton and heralding? And that wasn't a snarky question because when you're up there heralding, you've got your notes. You've got, maybe you got a book, maybe you got a small piece of paper, whatever, and sometimes you need both hands to hold it open, sometimes you're writing notes. Having a baton in your hands to do the salutes and do the announcements and so forth, that is an extra item. So I asked her, can you handle the baton? And she goes, yeah, I should be able to. And I said, good, because the baton's going home with you for right now. So she now has the baton, and if someone else winds up becoming the herald, we will address that as it comes, and obviously all the stuff will go back to where it needs to. But I felt it was important that the implement that everyone had come to associate with that office stayed with the herald, and it didn't just vanish because I was stepping away and she was stepping in. So you'll notice the baton's not there, and we'll see if it comes back. I haven't decided yet. That's still a part of the story I haven't written yet, and I look forward to seeing what that chapter says. The last 2 months have been an adventure, a roller coaster for sure, with lots of ups, some downs, some serious downs, but lots of ups. And these 2 items come with their own share of kind of built-in adventures. I now have to represent a barony that I live 6.5 hours from. So it's going to be an interesting adventure, but I'm looking forward to it. And I wanted to share that adventure with you because, life's a ride. Life is an adventure, and I want you guys to enjoy it. Live it to its fullest. Enjoy all the ups and downs. And in the future, we can look back and we can share those experiences and become better, more informed people for them. So, until next time, see you at the next event. Goodbye. God bless.